introduce myself. I'm Benjamin Horowitz, the president of the FEI chapter on Long Island. And we have a special guest today, one of our sponsors, Ariel, who is a good dear friend of mine, who's going to be going through some pretty cool topics that are impactful to organizations. So with that being said, I will kick it on over to Ariel. Thank you.
Thank you, Benji, and thank you for everyone being on this call today. Really do appreciate your time on this Monday morning. My name is Ariel Viesel. I'm actually a senior human capital management consultant with Paylocity. I've been with Paylocity for a little over 4+ years now, and I've been in the technology space a little less than 10 years. I used to work at Xerox before I came to Paylocity. And one of the reasons why I actually came to Paylocity was because of the growth mode it was in at the time when I came. And I just saw such a huge potential opportunity to make a big difference in this market for, financial professionals, HR professionals, and payroll professionals. And really excited to be here to talk about something that's really new and fresh and something that's becoming more and more important to a lot of financial professionals, which is this idea about like what a modern workforce solution is. So today, I just want to tell you really quickly a little bit about Paylocity, just so you guys know a little bit about who we are and what we do and where we are in the market before we get into this modern workforce solution. So we started back in 1997 by a guy by the name of Steve Sarowitz. He was actually the gentleman that started the company. He came out with the first cloud-based payroll system. So really a pioneer of payroll. And we were the first cloud-based before cloud even started. So really just shows the ability of technology that he really focused on. In our second chapter, we actually became public, which was 2014. Right now, we have our current CEO, who is Steve Beauchamp. He's our current CEO that is focusing on this attracting and retaining and this modern workforce type of atmosphere. So we're really focusing a lot of R&D around that. And right now we have over 25,000 plus clients and growing. Since I started here at Paylocity, we've had about a 25% year-over-year growth, which is a quantum leap to a lot of the other vendors out there, especially since we reinvest about anywhere between 13 to 15% back into our product. And if all of you know software, it's really important to continuously to stay ahead of the curve, to continuously reinvest in the product and enhancing the user experience. So right now we are in our third chapter. So we've had 3 chapters. The first chapter was really just getting this company started, right? Being a cloud-based payroll system. The second chapter was going nationwide, going public. And now we're in this time where we're focusing on modern workforce tools that are really geared around generational information, as well as, the uprise of millennials. So for today's agenda, we're going to talk obviously about what a modern workforce solution is, why a lot of financial professionals, HR professionals, even payroll professionals are really digging into what we call data insights and analytics. How does this impact the market as far as like a mid-market or even from a larger company, from a scaling company? We'll show you some illustrations on some modern workforce solution tools, some that Paylocity have, but also other ones that other organizations are utilizing right now as well. And then I'm going to open up to you guys and, really want to hear your feedback and some questions that you might have about any of these information that I'm going to provide to you guys. So we're going to talk first off a little overview about this modern workforce solution. So a modern workforce solution is tools and technology that will help increase the overall health of an organization. So not even just finance teams, but payroll teams or HR teams, really just focusing not only on today, but really just about what tomorrow and the future is, right? Just giving you digestible information to really understand key insights that will help you grow your business and make better informed decisions. We all know that 50% of the amount of money that you spend on in your company comes from your labor. So, and it comes from your people. So the better information that you have at your fingertips, the better informed decisions you're going to be able to make in the future. And what we're noticing right now is that a lot of organizations are trying to get away from what we call reports, whether it's creating reports or whether it's pulling reports from their HCM system. A lot of companies are trying to get away from that, even though they're still using the census data and the EEO reports and demographic reports or pre-processed register forms. Things like that are always going to be there and always going to be utilized. But there are more things that are important, especially as we go past this pandemic, like tenure, turnover, retaining an employee. What's the risk of an employee leaving? Right? What are some ways and solutions that organizations can utilize, especially with this work from anywhere, workforce right now? Because a lot of companies are still remote with this pandemic. So, what are they doing as far as tools to help really understand what's going on from an engagement side, from a productivity side? That's really just going to increase the morale of the employees. Dashboards are becoming like the wave of the future. We see that, as we get away from a lot of these reports, that people want information right at their fingertips. They want it to be easy on the eyes. They want to be able to just get information right then and there. And that way they can take that and go to the boardroom and have a roundtable discussion with all their executives and all be on the same page. Up till I think it was about 3 or 4 years ago, I remember I was reading a report that only 14% of HR professionals had analytics, because it was mostly going to the finance departments. So the finance teams usually had those analytics or those key metrics that they were using to measure, cash flow and return on investment. But now they're really giving the keys to the keys to the castle to the HR professionals too, to be able to see those insights, so you can transparently all work together. And that just ultimately will allow you guys to everyone to make better decisions around the people. So that's just a little overview of what a modern workforce solution is. So just to dig into a little bit about the insights and analytics. So I talk a lot about this because this is huge, right? I mean, just being able to have these dashboards right at your fingertips and not have to run multiple reports if you don't need them saves you so much time and effort. Understanding certain trends that you're looking for, right? That's going to help you predict future outcomes is critical. And when I show you those illustrations, you'll see what I mean. But certain trends, like we talked about, tenure, turnover, retention, labor cost, knowing exactly what the cash flow is like. Maybe there's some overtime that you've been paying and you want to know exactly what it looks like over the last 6 weeks or the last 6 pay periods, right? If you're having to go through multiple reports to be able to pull this information and it takes you too long, chances are you're not going to want to do it, and it's going to be a free-for-all. And that's what we've been seeing with a lot of organizations. I've asked companies multiple times, do you know what your labor cost is? Do you know what your overtime cost is? Okay, if you know what your overtime cost is from a global perspective, can you break it down by a department or a supervisor? People usually say no. So that's just something that you want to keep track of, because that's going to help you make better decisions around your people. Strategic hiring is critical right now. Obviously, the last labor report that came out last week, I believe we were at like 7.6% unemployment. So it's going back down, right? Pre-COVID, I think it was about 3.5%. So it's becoming harder and harder to find top talent. So what type of tools in a modern workforce can you use to really find the right talent? And there's applicant tracking systems out there, right? There's recruiting systems out there that work with a number of different job sites. Here at Paylocity, we have this solution called Job Target, where it actually sends out applications to like almost 2,000 job sites if you're registered with Job Target. So there are ways that you can utilize, and there's a lot of companies that do it very similarly, right? Because what's happening right now is, if you're spending as a professional, if you're spending time going through, let's say, LinkedIn or Monster, Indeed, putting an application, it could take a lot of time. And we're trying to mitigate the time that you're having to use with a lot of these manual efforts, because that translates into indirect dollars. So having a solution around that will also help you build a good plan and a good budget. Preventing future outcomes to stay competitive in the market. This is my favorite, because I think that every company should know a benchmark of what their competitor is, especially in their industry. So that way they can see if, let's just say, maybe you haven't given a merit increase to somebody that's been working for a couple of years. You really want to know what the benchmark is as far as pay rate or tenure, or maybe even the risk of that employee leaving. And what can you possibly do to prevent that person from leaving? Because we all know how expensive it is to hire somebody new. So we got a poll question over here. So true or false? A modern workforce solution is only for organizations that have millennial workers. So I'll give you a couple of seconds to answer this.
You gave us a layup there, Ariel.
Listen, I don't want to make it too hard for you. All right. So we got, I believe this has ended the poll. The results are false. That is 100% true. So it's not just geared towards millennials, even though there is an uprise in millennials. This is geared towards any generational information or any generation within the organization. Yes, there is an uprise in millennials, and as we see the baby boomers start to move on with their careers and start to retire, the uprise will be the millennials, but you can still make informed decisions around that. Kelly, you can move on to the next polling question. Oh, can I? Okay, should I share the results? Oh, okay.
Yeah, you did it.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, got it. So should I just click out of this? Okay. Oh, here we go.
Second question.
All right. So, which of the following best describes the benefits of a modern workforce solution? I guess I made this too easy, huh?
I don't think it's supposed to be difficult. It's funny. One of the purposes of the questions, and I've attended a lot of stuff from an accounting firm's point of view. It really is just to make sure the attendees are still there for the CPE credits.
Yeah, they're paying attention. All right.
If only the
Perfect.
presidential election was so easy.
Oh boy.
Quick,
All right, let's try
summarize.
not to bring the politics involved over
You
here.
had the results.
All right, I think we are all done. So we had all the results came in, and it is correct. It's all of the above. So obviously, trends that impact the bottom line are really important. Tools and technology that will help engage, develop, and increase productivity within an organization is 100% accurate, because you want to really focus on productivity and get the employees to keep their morale up as they continue to go through their job. And then, of course, from the executive or from the administrator, having digestible information to make predictions can really be beneficial for anything that may happen in the future. So perfect over here. So I guess I'm just going to click out of this. And do I still have? Perfect. So as you can see from here, this is our modern workforce index. It's just an illustration on certain things that we see and a lot of other vendors are starting to look at as far as what's an organizational health look like. So we talked about benchmarking, right? You can benchmark things from organizational health. You can benchmark things from what's the sentiment of the employees, and just having this qualitative data can really help you understand, what that sentiment is. Utilization. So here at Paylocity, what we see is that, and what other companies are looking for is they want to see they have visibility of their employees utilizing the tools. They want to see who's using it through a mobile app or who's using it through web-based. They want to be able to see exactly who's using these tools that they can utilize. And then on top of that, benchmark it and see what's that average like. Another thing within the modern workforce space is this thing called community. As we continue to go through this uprise of millennials and having technology at your fingertips, having internal communication that's very similar to some of the social media tools that you have out there like Facebook or Twitter is becoming really important to communication and engagement. So being able to create different groups, announcements, celebrating, recognizing, celebrating birthdays, anniversaries. That's just another way of obviously engaging the employees, but keeping them happy and knowing that they're being talked to and that they know that you care about them. And so with the scheduled pulse surveys, this is really cool because I think that surveys now is tremendous. A lot of companies are using surveys, and if you're not using surveys, you should definitely jump on the bandwagon because this is where your employees feel like they're being heard. This is where your employees feel like, okay, there might be an embrace for change, and changes is a huge part of an organizational's health because these employees, these millennials, they want to feel like they're being heard. They want to feel like there is movement within the company. And that just overall makes them happier and prevents them from leaving. And then using scheduler on your mobile application. So from a time and attendance standpoint, being able to have a schedule right on your mobile application rather than having it on a bulletin board or rather than having it on your computer, just having it on your mobile application, whether it's an employee or administrator, it just makes it easier for everyone. A little more into the data insights that I like to talk about. We talk about how there's the millennial uprising in the generation, right? So this just gives you an idea of, hey, what could we see from this that's going to ultimately impact our bottom line? Well, what we could see is that there's 40%. There's a high percentage of millennials, and the baby boomers are starting to move on with their career. So as you see these analytics or these data insights, you really could drill in and you can break it down, whether it's by cost center or location, or breaking it down by supervisor. And then if you really wanted to look at, let's say, turnover, you could see what are some of the reasons why you're having turnover, right? I mean, there could be a number of different reasons. This is just an example, right? It could be retirement, it could be relocation. I don't know why, but you'd probably lose your job if you were sleeping as well. So that could be a reason why there's turnover. We call these things trouble bubbles at the bottom, which is red. You'll see that these trouble bubbles are basically just what areas of interest a lot of people are looking at. And you can break it down by supervisor or position, and then also get benchmarks on turnover within your industry. If you have a 20% turnover and your industry is at 30 or 40% turnover, well, you obviously know you're ahead of the curve. So there's something that you're doing differently that's really making an impact on the employees. So, and then the last one, which is retention and risk. This is crucial. We all know that when you lose an employee, it costs, I think, almost about 9 months worth of salary to hire somebody. So when you're looking at something like this, at what the risk of an employee is at leaving, if you have someone that's at highest risk, there's factors behind that. There's data algorithms that can be pulled in real time that will allow you to get this type of score. It could be maybe they live very far away, and it's just not convenient for them. It could be they haven't got a pay raise in a while. Maybe they're not happy with their supervisor. Maybe they haven't had a good performance review, in the last 6 months or a year, right? All of these can tally up and give you an idea of what's the risk of this employee. Maybe you don't want this person to end up leaving. So maybe there's conversations around these insights that you can have that will prevent that person from leaving. It's very easy right now to just pick up your phone, go onto LinkedIn, look for a job, file an application with Monster, Indeed, Craigslist, any job sites out there. There's so many recruiters, as we know on LinkedIn, that are always hitting all of us up, right? So to prevent someone who's really top talent to leave, you really need to understand what are at the highest flight risk. And this illustration over here is just some labor cost information. I think that a lot of people really want to know exactly what their overtime cost is. They want to be able to see it, date range it, and be able to see and go back and see what happened, and then drill into some of those trouble bubbles that we talked about, where it could be maybe under the supervisor, or maybe it's based on the position. I mean, obviously right now with a lot of companies trying to file to stay within the CDC guidelines, they might be under budget, right? Just because you can only have a certain amount of people working within a brick and mortar. So there are things that you can see from trends, and you can, like I said, you could break it down by location, you could break it down by supervisor. And these are just some insights for you guys to just really dive into, so you can make better decisions around your people. Just really quickly on time and labor, just because I get these questions a lot, is how easy is it for a lot of professionals to really just approve time cards and within this modern workforce space? Well, if you have it right in front of you, and you know that you had some missed punches or you had request time off, all you have to do is just click into that box and then make the adjustments necessary. All these vendors out there, not even just Paylocity, can all do this right now. So if they're not able to do something that I have like right here in front, then it's probably advantageous for you to start evaluating somewhere else, and make a better decision with the HCM software that you're looking at. Also, within the mobile application, there's something called on-demand payment. We did a poll a year and a half ago, and to see what people would think if they were to be able to have money that they were able to pull into their checking account or savings account without getting paid their following week. Most people were like, yeah, I'd like to take my money in advance. And so there's something called on-demand payment, where you can actually pull a certain amount of money out before your actual paychecks. So the next question I get from that point is, well, how does that manage our cash flow, right? And well, the whole thing is that it actually doesn't come out from the company's bank account. It comes out from your vendor's payroll account. So if you were with Paylocity, it would come out from Paylocity's account first before your paycheck actually gets cashed on that, let's say, following week. So it's just another modern workforce tool that gives the employees a little more flexibility to maybe take out some money that they need to pay some bills before they actually get paid that following week or whenever. And you could set certain caps on it, so that way they obviously can't take their full amount in one shot.
Hey, Ariel, on that point, just a question.
Sure.
So does each company provide you guys or the service with a deposit that secures that money, or is it really in advance that you guys make and then we owe you that money?
Correct. It's in advance. That's exactly what it is. And then basically the once payroll is ran, right, from a reporting perspective, the total amount that the employee will see on their paycheck is the exact same amount because of after taxes and everything. The only difference is that the money comes out of a Paylocity account beforehand, before it actually comes out of, let's say, the employer's bank account. If that makes sense. Yeah. Yep. And lastly, this illustration is just one of the newest features out there. Paylocity is not the only company that does it. Is facial recognition clocks. So it's a great solution if you have people that are coming back to work. So if they are coming back to work and you want a safer solution, this is part of a modern workforce solution now. And people are very fearful to touch any type of biometric clock or put their finger on a fingerprint scanner. So this will actually take your picture, it will take your temperature, And there's also attestation questions centered around COVID. So it could be questions about, have you been in contact with someone over the last 24 hours with COVID, or have you had COVID in the last 2 weeks? You can ask those questions so that way your employee can feel safe when they're walking into the office. Now, what's really nice about this is that if somebody's temperature is over the amount that it's not supposed to be at, it will not let them clock in. It'll actually be in red, that screen. So it is great to have something like this because facial recognition was always a very challenging clocking system in the past. It wasn't really something that companies were really speeding up the process on because it's a very expensive technology to be able to get the facial recognition to go to somebody's time card. But because of COVID, companies like Paylocity, ADP sped up the process of getting this facial recognition out there to the market because we felt that people would feel safer going back to work. And that's pretty much it. I mean, I covered a lot of information. So we're just going to get down to one last polling question over here. So what is the most efficient way of knowing your company's health? Having many systems that are disconnected, let me read it out over here, that are disconnected and causing manual entry, using spreadsheets to calculate tenure, turnover, labor allocation, or having an automated solution. You guys are faster than I am. All right, I think we got everyone to answer. Awesome. That is correct. Having an automated solution that will take data in real time and provide insights and benchmarks on certain metrics. I thought actually some of you guys might have got that one wrong, but you stumped me over here. All right. Well, that pretty much concludes the presentation. I know I threw a lot at you guys, and threw a lot about modern workforce in a nutshell. But I hope that you guys really enjoyed, some of those illustrations and really understand what's going on within the modern workforce and the technology that's really being invested in with insights and data analytics. Does anyone have any additional questions about this presentation or anything that I showed? I'd love to, get some feedback over here.
Sure, Ariel, I have a quick question about it jumps off of that last polling question.
Yep.
Some companies, and I'm doing some fractional CFO work with companies on Long Island, and some companies are very satisfied with some portions of their systems, like their timekeeping effort or the way that they're managing their scheduling and times. So if they do have some, not many, other systems, how easily is it integrated into Paylocity as the payroll service?
Yeah, that's a great question. So Paylocity is known to be an open architecture. We integrate with many other systems out there. So what we do is we typically have either an API or a webhook that we can work with. So if there's any time and attendance system out there, technically a lot of time and attendance systems don't like to integrate. But what you can do is you can get like a CSV file, and we can import the CSV file into our payroll system and then collect the data from there without having to manually enter. But you have to click one or two buttons to get that import file. But other systems out there like 401k providers, other, let's say, benefit administration systems like bSwift or eCentral or Employee Navigator, or just some of the benefit enrollment systems out there, we can integrate with, as long as they take an import and they have an open architecture. We can basically set up what they call an API or a webhook to get that real data into that system. So so that's a great question. So we do work with other systems because there are other platforms out there that either they're kind of like a single architecture where they build their own proprietary product, but they don't integrate with other systems. Or there's this on the other side where you have some of the bigger companies that they just acquire other systems because they're so disconnected.
Yeah, I guess the part of that same question is, some retailers use their register systems, their mobile device register systems to capture payroll data already.
Mm-hmm.
And they didn't realize that when they purchased that system, it manages it, but it doesn't create the payroll. You still have to offload to a payroll service.
Correct. Yes. It'll collect the hours. Right. It'll collect the hours, but you still have to offload it into a payroll system. So if it can export into a CSV file, then it could be imported into our system as well.
Great. Thanks.
Yeah, no problem. Great question. Anyone else have any fantastic questions like Manny?
Or even not fantastic question.
No, I thought it was a great question because I try not to talk too much about Paylocity. Because that's one of the things that we really specialize in is more of an open architecture. So I'm glad you asked that question.
Yeah, I have others. If anyone doesn't have questions, I've got others.
I've got a few. One is my background is with larger companies.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know how many companies you have that have filings with the SEC, but they just came out with their new reporting requirement for all SEC companies that management has to make statements about in their filing how they're managing their human capital management.
Mm-hmm.
And the last I read, there are no metrics out there. There's no guidance yet. They're figuring every company is going to kind of come up with their own way of doing this for the first time. So I guess my question for you is, can you get companies to the next step with certain guidance with your networking with all your different clients as to here are some metrics that you may want to consider using or quoting in your SEC filing using this data as to, this is how we manage it?
Yeah, that's a great question. I mean, this is new news to me. I mean, I would love to do something like that with our clients to see exactly what it is that they need to see for the SEC guidelines. It's definitely something that I could bring to our clients, and then also hopefully get it to the developers. Absolutely.
Ariel, I think the question links to, like you said, you have an open system. I think it really drives on either the dashboards or the KPIs that you are collecting or that you have. The question is, are those customizable and designed on implementation, or they can, then we have to try to fit into those? Because what Rob's really saying is the need for companies are going to be varied based on what they want to show, but they're going to be required to be specific in other cases. So,
sure.
So, the openness of the system should allow either, CFOs or payroll people to work with Paylocity to say, these are the things I need to get out of the system. This is the dashboard that I need. These are the KPIs that I need. And
right.
The root of the question is, are they canned already in the system and need to be customized, or are they open and you can create your own?
So right now in our system, they're not customizable. We are in our second phase right now of what we call that modern workforce index, where we are starting to build more tiles around different metrics. And that's why I think it's so important to really get the feedback of some of our other clients on what they want to see, because we're not there on the customization part. You can, we talk about how we try to get away from reports, but as long as the data is in the system, you can pretty much export whatever information you want into a report. Now, it's not the easiest on the eyes, right? But it is a report that can be created in the system, if there's specific guidelines that you're looking for. As long as the data is in the system, you can export it into a report. So we are working on that in the future. That's going to be something that's going to probably be in the next phase, which is, customization and configuration for specific needs on the dashboards. But right now, the ones that I kind of showed you over here, which were, data insights. This is like the newest one that we have, the utilization, turnover, retention, the labor cost. Those are the ones that are right now we're really building upon. So that way, companies can get a better return on their investment. But it's something that's going to happen in the future. I don't know when, but I think it's going to be in probably the third phase.
Right. Okay. And from okay, Rob. Yeah.
I was going to say, does your system also track leave of absence, be it paid or unpaid, because that seems to be becoming a lot more complicated with, you know, you get, right, you get 3 sick days, but now with COVID and all the other state laws and national laws about all this other time off, whether it's paid or unpaid, tracking that, that gets to, you know, productivity. And do you
Sure.
also track benefit costs in terms of pension costs, retiree costs, healthcare costs?
Absolutely. Yep. We can handle all that. The leave of absence seems to be a big topic right now because there was a new law that came out end of September. So we actually updated our system as soon as that new law came into mandate in New York. We updated our system, so we're up to date with all the laws around the country because we are a publicly traded company. We have to make sure that we're up to date with every law, especially with the sick leave because of the coronavirus. We actually just came up with a new bucket in our system where if you're actually requesting time off from an employee standpoint, you can actually see what your future balance would be. Before this, you could never see that. It was only like, okay, once the time that you were taking was taken, then it was completed, then the hours come off the bucket. Now you can actually see those hours come off the bucket before. So that way, you know, so that way you don't fall into, let's say, a negative balance. And then have to accrue those hours back into your bucket. So something new that we came out with. But as far as what you were asking, Rob, yes, it's definitely something that we handle, and we know that it's definitely an issue with a lot of companies that are struggling to keep up to date with it. That's something that we really focus on and want to make sure that our clients have, so that way they don't have to like manually do it or figure it out.
You're keeping the regular family leave separate, I assume, from the COVID family leave to accumulate those hours separately.
Correct. Yep. There's different buckets.
And then does your system also allow for forecasting and comparison of actual to budget, and also what if analysis, that if 10% of my population did go on to some type of short-term leave due to COVID, this could be the potential cash flow impact and headcount impact?
That's a great question. I don't know if it can do projections that far. I'd have to find out for you, but that's a great question.
Okay.
Wish I had the answer for you on that one. I don't want to say yes or no.
I said, my background is more with larger companies.
Yep.
And I'm sure in a smaller company, that can all be done in Excel or some other spreadsheet where management is so hands-on and everyone's there,
Right.
that it's relatively easy for them to do their without paying extra to have a software database being able to do that.
Yeah, I mean, anyone, like if you have 10 employees, you know what if you lose one person, you know what your your turnover rate is, right? So yeah, you're 100% right. We deal with a lot of the mid-market. We deal with companies anywhere between 75 and thousands of employees. So and that's why we really focus on the data analytics. But I'm gonna make a note about that question because I think that's something that I could definitely bring up to the developers.
Yeah, and one of the common things is we're talking about large or small companies, and I think it applies to any size company. What do you determine to be the work effort on the company side? I mentioned to you when we had lunch a few weeks back, I mentioned to you that some companies think if they buy a payroll service, they're buying payroll. Like it's completely, all they have to do is
Right.
everything else just happens automatically, and that's rarely the truth. So when Paylocity looks at a company, what do they determine if it's like by the number of employees or the size of the company? How do they decide what the work effort is on the company side? Is it 1 point person, 2 people, data input people, management? What does the staffing look like?
Right. So it all depends on what modules you're getting, right? Because if you're just a standard payroll service, you might just get an implementation consultant who's going to just handle the payroll. But if you start getting into the weeds of HR, you'll have an HR consultant. If you start getting into the weeds of time and attendance, you'll have a time and labor person that all work in conjunction with each other. And then in the backs and then also in the back end, you'll also have somebody that's going to be working on map in the chart of accounts, to integrate with the accounting system. So, but realistically, what we try to do is try to get the whole team within an intro call. Within the first intro call, we want to make sure that, you as the client know who your team is going to be. And that way you'll have dates scheduled throughout, that 6-week or 8-week process of implementation. And you'll know those calls will all be scheduled on your calendar and with specific instructions on what needs to get accomplished on those days. So, so another great question, Manny, because that seems to be one of the biggest hurdles of getting clients to move, is just that whole implementation process, because people are very fearful of, getting a lot of that data into a new system, and they think it takes a long time, and it does. It's not easy. It's not an easy transition. There's always going to be bumps on the road. So anyone that you're evaluating, if they tell you it's going to be an easy transition, frankly, they're lying. Doing this for 4.5 years now at Paylocity, I've seen the good, the bad, and the ugly. Seriously, there's been challenges over here, just like there have been everywhere else. But the whole point is, if you have somebody good, if you have a good representative that cares about your client and that goes on all the implementation calls like I do with all my clients, then it should run relatively smooth. And that's what I always tell my clients, is that, even if you don't have an introduction call with your whole team, you should still have me on your calls, as many as possible, especially on that intro call. And then once you get on that second call, it's just, what we do is we pull the data from the current system. We'll take a username and password, pull the data, extract it into a CSV file. And then when we review it with our client, we just make sure that all that data that's in that CSV file is accurate before we dump it into our system.
Yeah.
Hope that answers your question.
And as straightforward as that sounds, I think anyone on this call is experienced enough to realize that there's details within that becomes more challenging.
It's never easy.
It's never easy.
Yeah. And
It's never simple. It's very complicated, and it takes a very long time, especially if you're engaging on the HR piece as well.
Right.
Yes.
And to that point, that's what I kind of was asking. Like, so even through the transition, I'm sure there's additional support that gets you through there. It's problem solving and punch list stuff. But even after that, I guess once you're set up, I was with a company that was working with multiple locations, staggered scheduling, hourly versus full-time employees. And they were using a service that, quite frankly, made sense to them for the ease of having everyone clock in from their phone and apply their hours correctly with the supervisor review. But the transfer of data, the management of the back office system wasn't really discussed up front. And so they had, instead of having a point person in payroll doing it, they had their accounting department trying to struggle to figure out how to get the info to them. So that's why I talk about the staffing, about, what does it take on the company side to manage the process itself?
Well, from a personnel standpoint on the company, I mean, ideally it depends on how big your company is too, right? Depends on, how many departments you have, and who are influencers in your department that will help this project, because if you have a company that's over, let's say 100 employees, and you have just, one HR person and one payroll person, well, your payroll person is obviously going to be that person that's going to really be working side by side with the implementation consultant. Whereas your HR person may still want to be on those payroll calls, because that is census information that the HR person is still going to need. But getting the module set up, learning the software, and then of course executing on getting it out to the employees is where the HR professional is really going to have to work closely with the HR consultant that works at Paylocity or whichever vendor that they choose. So and like I said, it all depends on how large of a company, so it depends on how many people that the employer has working on the project. But we know from our perspective that we'll have one IC who's going to handle the payroll. We'll have an HR consultant that's going to get all those modules set up, right? So anything from onboarding all the way to learning management system. And then If there is benefits also, if there's a Ben admin, we would have our Ben admin person set that up. And if there's time and labor, we would have a time and labor management person set that up. But here's the best part. Once implementation is done, after 2 pay cycles, what ends up happening is now you get your dedicated rep. The dedicated rep and the team around the dedicated rep is all shared within, is all the information on that account is shared. So rather than calling, let's say someone from time and attendance or someone from benefits or someone from payroll, your dedicated rep is the person that's going to handle anything that has to do with your system. And then she or he has a team that works around that person just in case you can't get through to that person. And on top of that, you have someone like myself who's the consultant over here that helps instrument everything get through to stay on top of things. So if you have a good rep that's tenured, that knows what he's doing or she's doing, then they can usually get you across the finish line. I'm not saying smoothly because it's never smooth, but they can get you to the finish line the way that you are supposed to get to the finish line.
And just one other implementation question. So if they're on if a company's on an existing payroll service or they're doing it manually, whichever, you know, do you do the old fashioned parallel work, you know, without doing the payroll twice, but you have like a whole test run that goes through and then you troubleshoot that so that you do a second test run to make sure it works?
Yeah. So the way test payroll works, and we do a test payroll, but see, that's the thing. People think a test payroll is kind of like a troubleshoot. There's a test payroll. All it is it's just pulling a pre-processed register in our system, and then in the client's current system, just matching the register on theirs. So you're not even going live yet, right? The client is still running their payroll the way they were doing it yesterday. What we're doing is we're just taking the same data in our system, pulling a register, and making sure that all the earning codes, deductions, taxes, everything is 100% accurate down to the penny. That's what a test payroll is. So we're just pulling a report, a pre-processed register, and matching. And if that comes out accurately, we do it again, maybe one more time. If the client, wants to do it one more time, just to make sure that it's, that you got 2 reports that are both accurate, do it again, and then you're ready to go live.
Right.
Yep. It's fairly simple to test payroll. Any other questions?
Yeah. How do you address IT and cybersecurity in terms of, do you find your newer clients that they've got the people who understand it or can understand it, be trained to understand it, and at the same time that have the in-house hardware and software that can deal with your system?
Mhm.
I mean, because I was a consultant on a client, I reported to a fractional CFO.
Mhm.
And when he came in, the first thing he said was to management is, you really have to update your computers. They're all desktop, they're all 10 years old, and you've got to stop collecting things on the computers. You've got to get on the cloud. And it was a family-run business, and the owner said yes. And the next week, the CFO was in there. All he got from the whole management team was, no, we're not going to do it because we don't understand it, and we think it's going to cost us too much money to get over the IT hurdle.
Mm-hmm. Very common question. I will tell you this, from a cybersecurity standpoint, we have never had any breach in our system. If you look at some of our competitors out there, you will see a lot of breaches. We have never had one breach. We take our security very, very serious, and we have 4 backup servers, God forbid. So like our data is so sensitive, right, that we have to. I mean, we constantly have, like, from our perspective, even working remote, we constantly have to take trainings on security. It's not like, most companies might do it once every 6 months. We do it probably once every 3 months. They send out these trainings to us as, as reps that could be dealing with, some sensitive information. So we take cybersecurity to really the highest importance because of the fact that we are a software company. And, breach of data could really ruin our reputation, and people will not want to work with us. So, we have 25,000 plus clients. So we have to stay on top of some of those SOC reports that are out there, because those are really those are the reports that we have to stick with as far as cybersecurity. So yeah, just to answer your question, I mean, we take it with the highest regard. I mean, we're one of the newer software companies out there. Even though we've been in business for 23 years, we went public in 2014, and all of the information is public. So it's like if you don't have good security, listen, it's not to say that it may not happen in the future, right? Because we know there's so many people out there that are trying to threaten security all the time. But I can honestly say, being here 4.5 years and knowing about the company, that we've never had a breach, and we're very lucky for that.
Yeah, I think what again, going back to our conversation previously, Ariel, is
Yep.
that, with the services that are out there today and the companies that need a lot, a lot of companies are developing from small to medium, from medium to large. It's really that customer service that you provide, and the ability for you to stay in touch throughout the, not just the integration, but also the implementation and ongoing work going forward. And I think what you guys specialize in keeping in touch with your new clients and customers, so that as things develop, and that's what self-promotion is. That's why the fractional CFOs and fractional controller works is out there, because there'll need to be somebody who integrates with their process. What's really happening at the company, what do they see, what do they need, communicating that to you then developing with that person how it's going to be resolved, and communicating back to the client. So I think, Rob, I think those are the things that help all of us, do well in being involved in a conversion implementation. They're not easy, but at least they can be facilitated by some better communication. And that's what we're hoping that Paylocity provides to us.
Yeah, and listen, I have clients that they have just had such terrible implementation that they still don't feel that they can trust our implementation process. So what they do is they hire other consultants out there. Like there's a company called HCM Unlocked. They'll even hire fractional CFOs like yourself to come in and really take charge of the implementation process. So I mean, it is a challenge within our industry. It definitely is. A lot of people, like a lot of HR professionals that have been doing this for a very long time, that have gone through a number of implementations and have gone sideways so many times, they don't want to deal with it. And that's one of the hardest challenges within our industry, is that, to reassure people that it's not always going to go sideways. There's going to be hiccups along the road, because that when you're taking data from one system to another, especially when you're a large company and having to sift through all that data and make sure that you're taking out the garbage and putting all the refresh button into a new system, you want to make sure that it's done accurately and precisely, so you don't have to go through this process again. Because most companies stay within 3 to 5 years in a payroll system. We have a 93% retention rate in our system.
I think one of the important things is that, we've gone through transitions, but once you get through that, the important aspect of where we struggled with one or two companies in past years was the availability of staff once you're in. And I think that becomes a really big issue as you move forward, once you get past the implementation stage. And that can make it or break it. We actually switched back to somebody and switched out again just because of that issue.
Wow.
Not so much because of the implementation, but because of the access to the quick access. I have a lot of staff with a large payroll. I can't, my staff can't wait 6 hours for somebody to get back to them.
Wow, that's a long time. That is a very long time. And what I will tell you this, and that's a great point, Andrea, is that, when you think about what has happened over, let's just say, the last 9 months, okay, with the pandemic, a lot of providers out there, unfortunately, had to furlough a lot of their employees. A lot of the payroll and the HR providers out there did not have the capital to keep their employees on payroll. So what happened was they furloughed a lot of people. And what that did was it also compromised a lot of the customer service. When in fact, in payroll, you actually needed to hire more people because of all the new laws that were changing within the payroll system, right? Within the FMLA, within the the 7200 form, with the application for the PPP loan. So
And the
that's
new
where
hourly employees accumulating hours.
yeah, absolutely. And so what I can say about my own company, because I work for Paylocity, is we actually hired more people during this time. So we took a hit on our actual profit margins because we had to hire more people because of the fact that we needed the resources. It was just too much. It was just way too much. And we knew that our service was going to be compromised if we did not hire more people. So there were other, and I'm not going to name other vendors because I don't like to do that, but there were vendors out there that did a big furlough. And I think a lot of them now brought most of them back, but it compromised a lot of the service. And that's just not something that our company really likes to do. We don't really like to compromise service. But it did take a big hit out of our margins because of the fact that we had to hire at such a fast pace. And customer service is really important because if you don't have a good dedicated rep that really knows the system, that's not tenured, then yes, it can make or break, like what you were saying, Andrea. I happen to think that Paylocity does a pretty good job of hiring people that are tenured in this industry. The problem is right now in our industry is that we've gotten so many good people from some of the bigger companies that it's so hard to find more people because we've tried, we've almost like taken everyone. I mean, not everyone, but we've taken so many of them that it's hard to find, people within our industry that have tenure. Some of these other vendors out there, they take people right out of college that don't have any experience. So, and then what ends up happening is they start moving on to their next job. They only last 6 months to a year, 2 years. So it can be very, very frustrating.
All right. Well, look, Ariel, I think this has been very informative, and for those of you who are on this call, I do work with Ariel on several clients, and I can attest to the client service and the way that Ariel handles working with his clients. They really are a top-notch organization and really do deliver what they say they're going to bring to the table. So with that being said, we are 5 minutes past. This was a very, very nice presentation, Ariel. Very well done. If anyone needs to get in touch with Ariel, we will share his contact info. It's also up here on the screen. And if anyone has any further questions, please feel free to share with Ariel. And thank you very much. Thank you to everybody who joined.
Yeah, thank you very
Thanks,
much,
Ariel.
everyone.
Thanks,
Thank you.
Ariel.
Thanks.
You're
everyone.
welcome. I hope you guys liked it.
It
Oh,
was great. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Bye bye.
All right,
Bye-bye.
bye everyone.